Nave.com.
At the beginning of 2020, New York finally entered the 21st century and passed some landmark criminal justice reforms that sought to protect the rights and freedoms of individual New Yorkers. Now, they passed even more criminal justice reforms later on after the death of George Floyd. But bail reform was a really big reform and piece of legislation for New York State. And it caught a lot of flack from many sides. But in my opinion, it was huge because it sought to ensure that the purpose of bail was kept to its singular purpose of making sure that people show up for court, that it was no longer to be used as a punishment for people, because that's unfortunately what it turned into in many courts. So this legislation made sure that courts were limited in their discretion to impose cash bail. Cash bail is basically the amount of money that you pay to make sure that you can get out of jail while a case is pending. In other words, after you've been charged, but before you have been convicted. Because you'll recall that you are innocent until proven guilty, which means that we don't want to unnecessarily jail people just because they've been charged with a crime. But here's how this actually happened in New York State. If you're arrested and charged with a misdemeanor or a Class E felony, the police will often simply give you an appearance ticket. An appearance ticket is something that tells you to show up to court at a later date and time where you'll then be arraigned. Now, there are limited circumstances in which a police officer can hold you for an arraignment before a judge right after you've been arrested, and that's all defined in the statute. But those are things like Class A, B, C, and D felonies, as well as things like if a cop needs to suspend a driver's license, or a judge needs to suspend a driver's license after you have been charged with a DWI, or if there's something like an assault against a family member, or even a friend, or even a stranger, and that person wants an order of protection, you can be arraigned that very night of your arrest, and you wouldn't likely be issued an appearance ticket. But if you are arraigned, a judge is now required to issue what's called a securing order. So a securing order is basically the document order from the court saying you need to show up to court, and here are the means we're going to ensure that you do so. In nearly all cases, cash bail and a forced remand or pretrial detention were eliminated. However, there's still a limited set of charges, these are called qualifying offenses, where a judge can still set cash bail or remand someone. The biggest list of them are the violent felonies and sex offenses, or if you're charged with a felony and you're out on probation, or if it is bail jumping, or you've escaped from custody, things like that, a judge can still set cash bail or remand you. But for the most part, cash bail and remand are no longer options when a judge is setting securing order at an arraignment. And that's because judges are now encouraged to use what are called non-monetary release conditions if and only if that judge thinks that you might be a flight risk being something where a judge is deciding that he or she does not think you're going to show up to court when you're ordered to do so.
Es Nave, es Nave.